yeah, because you're saying because it's not ionized and it's ionized at the end.
Right.
You know, because it doesn't seem like they have enough time for them to.
Oh, fuck her.
Hey, man.
What causes to fly?
Yeah, it's like, all right, and now for our commercial break. Hi there, my name is Colin, and today in this video, I'll be showing you clips of a roughly 45-minute talk I gave on a project we've been working on for the last few years. This project is a Hall effect thruster. I'll kind of let past me do most of the talking here, but at least in this one, the purpose of this video was to kind of codify, I'm graduating as an undergraduate at Washington State University. A lot of the research and work I've done presenting on this topic, and then explaining it to a new crop of freshmen, sophomore, junior, and even some seniors who I'll be passing a lot of my work off to at Washington State University on this Hall effect thruster. So I figured, if they're going to be working on it, they should at least know how it works. So the underlying context you should be watching this video with is, an undergrad who just was way too curious about this topic, went out into the world, talked to all the experts they could find, basically get his hands on or find their emails for. And now I'm trying to distill all the learnings I did in a way that people who've never been exposed to it, at least that they can understand at a very high level and actually kind of work through the different particle motions, all the different exchanges of forces. Looking back at it, and even as I was talking about it, this is not a complete picture. I am merely a self-taught undergrad who has just, emailed the guy who wrote the textbook and kind of learned from it that way. Shout out if there's a guy watching, Dr. Dan Lev, who's been super helpful for this, and all the other people of the electric propulsion community. This video, 30-minute monologue dialogue with my team at Washington State University is my best understanding of how this Hall effect thruster works. One thing I noticed, as somebody who came from a music background, taught himself engineering, is that a lot of the materials that are out there weren't really great at teaching or at least help you visually understand. So this video was put together for somebody who doesn't really know, maybe has a little bit of a background of electricity and magnetism from a physics class, but then you have to go from there, and they're starting to talk about charged particles colliding and stuff like that, and it's not super intuitive. So this video was made to hopefully explain, okay, you have a basic understanding of atoms, and from there, electric fields and magnetic fields. From there, I build you up, or at least attempt to build you up, to how Hall effect thruster works and even ion thrusters more generally. As this video will be going on to the internet, I'm sure I got some things wrong. Even as I was going back and watching it, there are a couple of things I know it took me a little bit to get to. For instance, talk about magnetic mirrors, and you'll notice that when I talked about the movement of a particle, I didn't have a good answer for why it goes back and forth until later in the video. So you'll actually get to see me think out loud in real time. Which I guess should humanize it a bit, because it's not, when you hear people, physicists, talking about, propulsion, you just kind of assume, oh, they've always known this. They, grew up just thinking, yes, the Lamar radius of this atom is what causes this, and, it's something that's deemed on high that you have. But yeah, hopefully, I get 90% of this stuff right. The stuff I do get wrong, I'm sure people, this will be posted on the internet, likely on LinkedIn. Some of my electric propulsion friends, professors, colleagues will correct me, and I'll make another video talking about the corrections. So hopefully you enjoy. Again, if you have any comments or critiques, things I missed, feel free to post them down below. I'll almost certainly make an addendum video to this. But yeah, without further ado, let's go listen to past Colin talk about Hall effect thrusters for God knows how long. We'll start this. Hi, Mom.
I mean, if you want to run that, it's not something.
No, but like, totally. Come on.
Yeah, I'd be down.
Hell yeah.
All right.
It's more about whether it's best.
So for those of you who are interested in how the thruster works, or who have heard it already and get to hear my spiel again, we'll go for the top. So what we'll do is I'll do some hand drawings. There's some, talk about the theory. There's some nice videos I have pulled up that should give you a visual intuition about what's going on. So hopefully between those two, you've got to get a better idea of just, theoretically what's going on. I'm not going to go into hand calculations about how you design the thruster, but at least initially you have the concepts about how this works. So everything with this thruster, we'll start with the propellant. So in this case, we're going to work with helium as we're working with an inert gas. So helium, has 2 protons, 2 electrons, different isotopes have a certain number of neutrons. And our end goal here is, if given that we're working with electric thrusters, you guys can kind of talk if you want, I don't fucking care. You'll be on record. Is you're going to take this, you're going to ionize it, and then you're going to use electric and magnetic fields to accelerate out in one direction. So now we're going to talk about the detail of, okay, cool, I can say that back to you. What does that actually look like? So we have this, this noble gas. In this case, it's helium because it's going to be easier for me to draw. There are a few different ways we can ionize it. The way we're going to talk about today is we're going to ionize it by slamming an electron into it.
Question.
Yes, we have a question.
Noble gas or inert gas?
They are very much the same.
Okay.
Because inert there's technically no overall charge. You can use some halogens, but that's more very cutting edge stuff.
Okay.
In this case, it's easy to explain. Noble, inert gas, the only thing you have to worry about is asphyxiation if you breathe it in. So there's a few different ways of ionizing it. The way that Hall effect thrusters work is they take an electron, they slam it into the helium, or this xenon, and then you end up getting 2 protons, an electron, and then you get an overall charge. So in this case, this would be helium plus, in chemistry classes, and you can add the plus to whatever favorite inert gas you have there. So cool, all right. That's the overall function. So now you have an ionized particle of an inert gas. So this enables you to use electromagnetic fields to move it. So the way that you accelerate this inert gas, it's just very simple from, if you guys have taken physics 202, you have an applied electric field, so you have some sort of cathode for positively charged plate. You have some other thing that's creating a negative charge. There's an electric field gradient, and if you put a charged ion or electron through it, your ion will move in the direction of the gradient. So that's all that's happening. So again, ionizing it, now it's affected by electric fields. For ion thrusters in general, that is entirely what's going on. But now, of course, for maybe if you're anything like myself, when you're asking, you go, okay, cool, but how does this electron get generated? How does it know to hit that ion? So that's where we start going into, specifically, how a Hall effect thruster works. So, Hall effect thruster takes an inert gas. In this case, now you know generally, okay, we're knocking off electrons. We're going to work with a gas that's more commonly used, is xenon. It gets ionized by hitting an electron. So first off, you need a source of electrons. And you're like, okay, cool, there's these electrons, they're slamming into this inert gas. How the fuck did they get generated? There's a material. If you're taking notes, this is the word you want to look for. The thing is called a therm-ionic, I can spell right, emitter. These are materials that when you heat them up, emit electrons. So that makes that pretty easy. So the common one that's used a lot within the industry, at least for laboratory tests, is called tantalum. If you guys are familiar with cathode ray tubes, they are the material that typically is used for that. So when you put a current through this wire, electrons come off of it. Pretty straightforward. We can talk more about that in detail about this equations called Richardson-Dushman equations that you can go and calculate this, but all you need to know is if you need to look up the term that emits the electrons, thermionic emitter. All right, so Hall effect thruster uses inert gas, you have a thermionic emitter, and it shoots the electrons into it. Now the question is, okay, how do you direct the electrons at the thing? Because you can maybe spray them, but you want some sort of way to focus the beam. So this is where the term, where it gets its name, the Hall effect, comes from. And let's go a little bit, I'll talk a little bit about the theory, and then I'll show you some videos, because I find kind of, at least for me understanding it, the combination of those two should be able to help you visualize what's going on here. So we have, I'll at least show you the Hall effect thruster, just the kind of cross section of the chamber. We have a chamber here. Something like that. You are injecting your inert gas here. In this case, we'll do xenon. And there's, of course, you're injecting it from a pressurized vessel, and it's going out into the vacuum of space. So that pressure difference is what's mostly forcing it in that direction. Outside of your chamber, you have a thermionic emitting material. Sometimes this material is in what's known as a hollowed cathode, but for now, to keep it simple, we'll just use a wire of tantalum. You heat that wire of tantalum, and electrons start getting emitted, and they start moving towards the thruster. What is the thing that causes the move towards the thruster? Because they can be emitted in many different directions. The thing that causes that then to be cut and or move towards this given direction are inductors. Who here is familiar with an inductor? All right. Actually, is it Tony?
Yeah.
Could you explain to me what an inductor is?
Inductor, from my knowledge, is basically a thing that runs a current through a loop and creates a changing magnetic field.
Yep.
That will,
Yeah.
changing magnetic field will create electric field that will push electrons in the direction.
Yeah, some are right. So they're kind of tied into each other. So if you have a changing magnetic field, you'll get an electric field.
Yeah.
In this case, if you have, and if you go talk to attitude team, if you're familiar with magnet torquers, Helmholtz coils, if you have current through a wire going in a circle, you're going to get a magnetic field that's right-hand rule, basically in the direction of your thumb. It'll loop around. Yeah, so that's what an inductor is. So these thrusters, okay, you have your thrust channel, you're putting your gas through it. You have on the outside these wire-wrapped inductors creating a magnetic field. So the line's going out here. And then in the center, which is why I do this wall thickness, there's also, I'll just kind of do a cross view here, another inductor wound with the current going the other direction so that the magnetic field lines actually go out and then in such a manner. So you have, over here, you have a similar thing too. And then the field lines are going in. You have basically this big kind of toroidal ring that comes in. I'll show a video that goes over this that has a better visual intuition. But for now, that's what you need to know. All right, so we have these inductors. Magnetic field lines are being traced out. Do we have any initial questions right now? Cool. All right, so now we have the electrons coming from the tantalum emitter. The thing that causes, the forces that cause them to go into and follow the field lines is what's known for some of you, I guess, who aren't physics majors or who are, as the Lorentz force. This is also known as cross-electron drift. Yeah, other fun names. Basically, this force is described by two things for a given charged particle. You have the motion of the particle moving in a circle for a given magnetic field, and then it will move in a straight line according to an electric field. So, okay, that's the formula. Yeah.
F is equal to 9V.
This should
That's
be,
Q.
yes, these are Q's.
Q's.
Yes, so this is the charge of the particle. So for an electron,
Okay.
that charge, an ion's going to be a different charge. And then V cross B, how you could imagine it is if the particle is moving and there's a magnetic field going this way, the particle will circle. And then the electric field is basically, okay, if you have a particle and there's an electric field here, it'll move left to right. This is the spot. Actually, I'll probably, right on this one. Yeah, actually, I'll go ahead and erase it, and I'll show you a couple of the videos really quick. That should, this is what, okay, you saw the whiteboard drawing, but then I'll show you a couple of videos where you can actually see people setting up magnets, actually changing the movement of electrons, and that should give you a better idea of what that looks like. All right, so I'll turn this guy on. And I'll probably take a few minutes. Thanks, boss. Demonstrate's very light.
Sorry, City.
Let's see.
I think you need to get a new towel.
Yeah, actually, probably spray it. This would probably help. Yeah.
No. It does nothing. I tried it.
That's great. All right, you are really taking your time here.
Editor, skip until.
Yeah. Yeah, cut it off.
Okay, so is that something I should add to the electrical field slide? Is that we use inductors to calculate
Yeah.
magnetic field?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways because you can use inductors to create the magnetic fields. Some thrusters, especially if you see ion thrusters, you can actually use permanent magnets to create those magnetic fields. That's a much more low power way to do it. Yeah.
Ion thruster versus Hall thruster.
Ion thruster. So an ion thruster, I guess this is the fun thing about terminologies because they'll use them interchangeably. There's ion thrusters at the top. It's just kind of family of electric thrusters because they all use ions. But within the family of ion thrusters, there's ones that use this Hall effect, and there's ones that use that don't use this Hall effect, are also known as electrostatic thrusters.
Okay.
But yeah, here we go. All right, so I'll explain here. I'll run this video and explain kind of what's going on. This is actually, so if you guys want to look up on YouTube later, for those who haven't, what the fuck are you? What? I don't need projector paper.
Oh, he pressed the button, yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotta hit the light one. There you go. All right, cool. That should be, yes. All right, so this video, if you want to look it up, because this guy has some narration that's pretty good that goes along with it, gives you a good visual demonstration of what the Lorentz force is and how you can change the electromagnetic fields. But what you're seeing here is these two, basically white plates. These are big, basically mounting points in which there's a lot of copper wire wrapped around. And as a current gets put through it, there'll be a magnetic field operating in that direction. So you can imagine in your mind that there's the magnetic field vector is going basically straight into the wall. Down here is that thermionic emitter that we were talking about before. So there's, it has basically, I think they use tantalum in this case. You'll see that when they turn it on, there'll be basically this plasma stream coming out. It's kind of hard to see here, but they actually have on the edge of it 2 electrostatic plates. So one's charged positive, the other's charged negative. And what you'll see is he's going to change the voltage of the plates, so that voltage is just the gradient of the electric field, and that's going to cause the beam to move up and down. And then he's also going to change the amount of current going through these wires, so you'll actually get to see basically when you have the combined circular motion with the forward motion, the particles are actually going to move in a helical manner. So we're going to show you that really quick.
Make sure you turn it
That's awesome.
on the off switch, the black and the Helmholtz coils, and then you adjust the current. Now I'm going to increase the voltage and demonstrate electrostatic deflection.
So this is increasing magnetic field gradient.
I'm going to
so
switch the
electrons moving up and
polarity.
down.
And now it's going to go down. Now we're going to engage the Helmholtz coils. This LED indicates the current is going clockwise, and clockwise is the direction you want to do to actually collect data.
What are we seeing?
So I'm going to increase the current.
So right now, here, I'll pause it really quick. So going back to the initial demonstration I showed before, right here, there's a thermionic emitter. This is all enclosed in a vacuum.
Is that what's glowing?
That's what's causing the glow. So the gas, I forget, if you do like basically the quantum numbers, you can figure out, okay, what gas is being ionized here. I think it's neon. I forget which one he specifically says.
Gosh.
Yeah, but basically, so the gas, he's shooting electrons off of here. There's a lot of electrons that's ionizing the gas here, which is causing this to glow. So what you're seeing here is the path of the electrons. So as you see that he changed this as a voltage, you'll see the particles move up and down. So that correlates from that Lorentz force, that QE product, as he's changing the gradient towards one side or the other, that causes them that way. And then the cross B product, that causes the particles to circle. So that's where you tend to see this component, because now he has these big magnetic field coils on, inductors, choose your favorite name for them. And that's what you're seeing causing this circular rotation. So that's the QV cross B product. So yeah, combined together, I'll let it play a little bit.
Until you get a nice symmetrical ring. If you look at the angle of the ball, you'll notice this is spiraling.
Let's see. Yeah, well, it's Wi-Fi
You want
there.
to adjust this to be 90 degrees, so it's
As you see, as he's changing, electric field, magnetic field, you can actually change, what the electrons are doing. So this, because you hear a lot talk about, this hopefully gives you a visualization of what the electrons are doing, how we actually visually know that they're doing that. So now, I'm going to pause this really quick. All right, so to quickly recap, we know again, we have a gas. In this case, we can ionize it by shooting electrons. You can shoot the electrons by changing electromagnetic fields. So now, we're going to talk about how the Hall effect thruster ionizes it in its given manner. And I'll pull up another visual demonstration and turn off his audio because he is great animation but terrible narration. So we can make it just a loop. All right, so I'll pause it really quick, talk about what's happening, and you guys can visually see. So going back to the previous, as Tony said, we have the inductors here. These are creating magnetic field lines. They go out, then in. As we saw before, the electron, because of these magnetic field lines, will circulate. There's also an electric field component that's created by, within Hall effect thrusters, there's a conductive plate that's back here that's creating the positive anode. And the negative end, because electric field requires a positive, group of positive charge and the negative charge. Because you're emitting a bunch of electrons from the thing that's known as the thermotic emitter or a cathode, if you have a big group of negative charge that is electrons, guess what? That's a cathode. They're all connected here, so that's what's creating the magnetic field gradient. So you'll see that the particles will come from this thermotic emitter, get caught in these magnetic field lines, they'll be captured here in what's known as a magnetic mirror, or magnetic mirror-like fashion, and they'll circulate in this exit part in such a way that when the inert xenon gets put in, there's just a sea of circulating electrons that those basically get buzzsawed, and that's what ionizes it. So I'll play
Draw
the
where the electrons are circulating, or like.
yeah. Well, here, hold on. I'm gonna play it. So this will give you an animation. So this is the movement of here we go. So this, I guess we'll explain. So these are this green dot, and doesn't have the best audio, is showing what a single electron does kind of in its overall lifespan. And I think, not the best animation, but it's the best one I could find. This is what, what this ion is doing when it reaches a certain magnetic field of the inductor. And then we have basically all those ions connected together, probably circulating, and then you have the inert gas that gets hit by that circulating part. But yeah, I can see there's a little bit of like a lost look over in Justin's eyes. So
Yep.
I guess, is there a certain part that isn't quite clicking?
Yeah, can you back it up?
Yeah.
Can you back it up before that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then can I have your pen?
Yes.
So just this?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So electrons come out of here.
Yep.
And then they go into there.
Yes.
Because this is negative.
Yes.
This is positive.
Well, sorry, actually here. So this is maybe a better way to think about it.
That top part is negative.
So this, remember that thermotic emitter material I was talking about?
Mhm.
This is basically just a fancy case that has this in there.
Okay.
So when you heat this, electrons are being emitted.
Right.
So then as they move, because there's magnetic field gradients that they usually have them pointed so they get
Okay.
shot out.
So it doesn't have to circulate back. So referring to it as a negative is.
This is kind of where it gets, because it said cathode, but it's not technically the cathode.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of terms
But
that get
this
mixed.
is positively charged.
So back down, if I, maybe a better, let's see if I can do it right here. Kind of, if you were to look at the channel on the very bottom of it, there's usually a conductive plate down here that's connected to the anode of a power supply.
Okay.
So that's where the positive end of the electric field comes. And then because these are all electrons up here, you just have a bunch of these little guys, because you have a big collection of negative charge all circulating here.
Wait. So hold on.
Yeah,
The anode is down here.
Yes.
This is not the anode.
that is not the
And
anode.
that is not the anode. You have another inductor in here.
There's an inductor here, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So then the electrons flow into inside of this circular part.
Yes, they flow to, basically, because these were all the maximum magnetic field lines connect. The concept, even maybe break it down a bit, there's this concept called I'll put it here. magnetic mirror.
Also consider the magnetic trap.
Okay, yeah, that too. There's a lot of different names, right? But basically, you could imagine if you have, in this case, you can think of two refrigerator magnets. If you pull them together, they'll be attracted to each other. Within that attraction, there's going to be field lines going from one to the other. So what happens when, you can imagine you have these, magnets from a fridge as you're pulling them across, and they have those magnetic field lines, is if you put electrons into kind of that space between, they will actually get caught in a mirror-like fashion. There's some videos you can probably pull up that shows this a little bit better. But the electron, when it gets put into this, I guess you could think of it, particle trap, will circulate, and then it'll get to this side, and it'll basically just bounce back and forth. There's some other
Okay.
parameters. Yeah.
Gotcha. Because I was thinking, when you keep saying circulate, I'm thinking this.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's yeah.
But they're going back and forth.
They're going back and forth.
But in an axial.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we could think of this as we have the simplified magnetic mirror model. You have one magnet here, the other magnet here that causing field lines like that.
Right.
See the electrons, if you remember seeing the movement, we can play it.
And
here.
these are oppositely
yes.
polarized.
Yes.
So
So see if you see that movement of those electrons back and
Okay.
forth.
That makes more sense.
So that's how you get that. It's like, this is one thing. It's like, how are the electrons getting caught at the exit part? Is because of this fundamental magnetic mirror idea that when you put charged particles, ions or electrons, they will move back and forth. And it's not a perfect trap. You can look in deeper and have things about deflection angles and stuff like that. And there's certain energies, but that's fundamentally what's happening here. You have an emitter, a thermionic emitter, that when you heat it up by its fundamental property, will emit electrons. The electrons, because you're pointing the gun towards that general direction, will get pointed here. There are magnetic field lines in which the electrons get caught. And because the magnetic mirror concept will circulate back and forth, and they'll stay here. There's some drift, but for the simplification, most of them are caught here. And then when you're injecting the inert gas, it's not seeing an electron, not seeing an electron, and then there's just this big sea of electrons it runs into, and then it just gets hit by one of them, and then that's what causes it to ionize. And there's some that drifts back and forth, but that's fundamentally what's going on here.
That makes sense. Two more questions.
Yeah.
These inductors
Yes.
are all four of these in the same orientation?
Yes, so these would all be oriented this way, that one's oriented that way.
Okay, so this convergence right here of the two magnetic fields, how is it that these are, if they're trapped, how are they moving
For right
over?
here, that's a good, actually this might be something where, talking to the guys who's visualizing this, because it looks like, hey, why isn't there another inductor right here? Why do they have these extra?
Well, but also just like if you want to make that idea, I guess
Yeah.
it's hard because it's in two dimensions and like visualizing
Yeah.
magnetic fields is hard.
Yeah.
How does it like circulate around in this direction then if they get caught?
Going back
These
and forth.
fields.
So this is assuming a lot of things. The magnetic mirrors are assuming that for this simplified 2D, it's getting injected, perfectly straight. You're only going back and forth because this cathode is slightly off axis. You're injecting. You can kind of think of it as like a skateboard ramp.
That's what he
almost.
was showing in the previous
Yeah,
video, the
exactly.
angle of the cathode.
Yeah, actually, Tony, yeah,
Can
exactly.
you show just a couple of magnetic field lines and their directions?
Yeah,
Can I
so
come off, because right now I'm still kind of confused.
yeah, so let's say they can be either direction, but let's say, so if we've got, going back to the simplified thing, this is the positive magnetic field line. They have to, close somewhere. It was like Gauss's law that all magnetic field lines have to reconverge.
Yeah.
You could say, so here, because these are technically wrapped copper wire.
I mean, just like, let's
Yeah, okay, just draw here.
for
Yeah,
simplicity.
yeah, this is where, I guess the magnetic field line vectors look something like that. Yeah, hopefully, I guess, does that click it in?
Yeah, it makes sense, but what would stop the electron from hitting that plate instead?
I'll see, let me see actually here. Let me pull up, see if I can find a video really quick that shows it. I know there's some good ones.
Hey Jay, are you not in GitHub yet?
What?
Are you not in GitHub yet?
I sent a request for it.
Here we go, yep. Okay, so here we go. So you can imagine, now I'll pause it really quick and then I'll let it play. But you could take your This would be one, taking the refrigerator magnets. This would be one refrigerator magnet. This would be the other. The field lines are kind of closing in. And then this is just a little quick visualization of how, I guess, what particles tend to do when they're placed between those two. So as you notice, as it gets closer to one, they kind of get deflected back. Yeah, but it's not super intuitive. This is something you might have to go look up and just kind of see that, oh, okay, this is something that we've experimentally noticed. This is toroidal. That's if you want to work on fusion. Yeah, this is, I guess, this idea, because very solid intuition where, magnetic field lines go that way, want to crash. Something I couldn't explain super into detail why this is the case, but because of this magnetic mirror concept, when charged particles approach, a given magnet, basically, they'll actually get deflected in the direction.
What forces cause it to change the direction from
The particles, or
Lorentz force, or is there a different nature of force?
to
bounce back from the pole.
bounce back from the pole. I'm pretty sure it's the Lorentz force. I don't have a good answer for that, honestly.
Would be Crosby.
Yeah, well, there's this whole conversation. I think this might be part of it, because the particles circulating. Technically, that's a current moving a circle. So then, at a certain point, it might be moving fast enough where, it's creating its own magnetic field that counteracts that.
Okay.
I think actually that might be the case. I'm sure this goes on the internet. Somebody's gonna be in the comments going, well, actually. But I'm pretty sure, actually, now that I think out loud about it, I think that's might be what's deflected, because as it circulates and it gets the field lines close in, it circulates fast enough where it induces its own magnetic field in the other direction. That's my best guess. Correct me if I'm wrong, internet.
I blocked out for a second.
Okay.
I'll rewatch it. That's fine.
Yeah, but these are the basic terms you need to pay attention to. Well, thermionic emitter, that's pretty straightforward. Thing heats up, electrons come out. Awesome. Lorentz force, that's the one that's very theoretical. I'll post these in, actually I'll probably post these in the payload channel for those to visualize again. And then between the Lorentz force, there's the magnetic mirror effect, which I'll post a link there that kind of talks about how that effect enables particles to basically act as a trap. Yeah, I think it actually might be because when they circulate, they induce their own field. But yeah, I'll post resources where this is the first pass. You look at it, you play within your mind, and you'll figure out how deep you want to go, or just be like, okay, electrons hit ions, cool, or electrons hit inert gas, ionize it, awesome. That's as far as I want to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess any other, one more. Or
So,
another one.
well, if you can jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so, okay, the atoms of xenon are coming in.
Yes.
They're getting hit by these electrons, which
Yep.
are bouncing back and forth.
Yep.
Why does the bouncing back and forth, I get why it ionizes it,
Yeah.
but what are they representing here where it turns from an atom into almost a gaseous substance? And then why is it that then creates some sort of force impulse
So you're,
in that direction?
gotcha. So I think, the first question, you're talking about, okay.
Yeah, what's happening there?
Yeah, so pretty sure these pink things are electrons. They're just describing the motion in a given part of a magnetic field. So this is the electron movement. So these aren't the actual xenon atoms. These are electrons.
Right, no, the
Yeah.
blue ones that come in.
The blue ones that come in.
The large blue ones.
So so you said, why are those getting ion?
I'll show you.
Yeah. Oh, big blue.
There.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Big blue, gas.
Yeah.
Or
the-
that's what it looks like.
Yeah. So because the xenon is inert,
Mhm.
it's not ionized at all yet. If we go back to the very first part we were talking about, they only ionize when the electrons hit them. The xenon atom hasn't seen an electron yet until it gets to that part,
Mhm.
and then the electron basically hits it, and then it ionizes at that
Okay.
point. That's why you see that big.
So
blue pop.
the flash is just a representation of the
Yeah,
ionization.
exactly. It just
Okay.
yeah.
Why is the energy, because there's a force vector here,
Yeah.
right? Why is this force vector larger than the force of the inert gas? Why does this produce more force?
Yeah,
than
okay,
this?
so this is going to go back to, if you go into your, basically your electromagnetic, or the force between two capacitor plates. So if you look at, like, the strength of a magnetic, like an electric field, if you have, 2 voltmeters, like, if you look at maglev trains and stuff like that, that force is orders of magnitude stronger than the force you can get from just, a pressure differential.
Okay.
So, because, without all this magnetic stuff, because you're opening a valve and the xenon's going out, you're going to create thrust no
Right.
matter what, because it's like, think of it as you're sitting on a hose, you have a hose, you're sitting on a chair, you spray propellant that way, you go back the other way, you're going to get some thrust. This electric field is basically, you could think of it as an afterburner, where it's giving a bunch of extra energy. That's, if you go into basically the force that's produced on a charged particle from an electric field. I forget the number off the top of my head, but you're looking at least the speed in which you're creating. It's huge. It's much more. The exhaust velocity is a lot higher than you can get by
Right.
just ejecting it out the back.
Okay, so it's that as the gas is flowing this way, this is positively charged,
Yeah.
and then this sea of electrons is negatively charged, and so they repulse each other?
Oh, I see. Because you're saying when it hits, yeah. Because you're saying because it's not ionized and it's ionized at the end.
Right.
Because it doesn't seem like they have enough time for them to.
Oh, fuck,
Hey,
The
man.
white cause is to fly.
Yeah, it's like, all right, and now for our commercial break.
The white cause
Are we
is
going
to-
through
so-
SpaceX or NASA?
We're flying rocket-wise. I think we're going on a SpaceX launch. Well, if we're moving it back, we'll see. Well, NASA doesn't technically. This is another conversation. But yeah, so what part does, because if it's not ionized before the sea of electrons, does it get, what's causing that extra, where in that
Yeah.
part does it create that extra force?
So I figured out how the electrons move,
Yep,
that the electrons ionize the gas.
yep.
And I guess what I'm confused at is why opening the pressure valve and having a pressure differential, I'm starting to understand that it's due to magnetic forces and repulsion of the charged gas, but I'm trying to figure out how and why.
Yeah. So going back to the pressure differential is between just the pressurized gas. That's what's causing the gas to move that way.
Right.
Ionized or not ionized, it's going to move that way.
Right.
Where that extra force comes in, or that electric force, that's actually a good question. I think, and this might have to go back to my mentor and talk. It's either that because they get ionized here, they might create like actually that might make sense because there's a negative cathode here, there's a bunch of negative charge here, and there's a positive charge here, that there's going to be an electric field between the circulating electrons and the ionized xenon.
Yeah.
So I think that that would basically kind of push in a similar way that if you have anything else electric, you have something magnetized in it, it's going to push back. I think that might be the case, but I don't have a good answer, so I'll have to get back. But actually, that would actually make sense because you have it's ionized. Now you
Yeah.
have a negative. That would actually make sense.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the majority of the thrusters that I'm familiar with
Yeah.
use some sort of pressure differential from it, like
Yeah.
expanding gases.
Yep. Yeah.
And so with this, if it's not increasing the pressure differential, I'm interested in where that force vector comes
Yeah,
from.
so I think it's probably not a bad guess that because this is positive, this is negative up here, it's going to probably create. Should I think about it? I guess I have to give you. I think that would actually
Yeah,
attract
attract.
it back. Yeah.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when xenon hits the electron field,
Yeah.
the sea of electrons, what happens then?
So
It gains an electron, I guess, right?
So it actually, now that I think about it. So it's xenon down here. So let's say it's the bottom of the thruster.
Yeah.
It's not ionized. It hits the electrons. So if we go back to, it loses an electron basically.
It loses an
It loses an electron because it's knocking off. One of the electrons are knocking it off. And then it comes. Actually, I think part of it is because in addition to the cathode is generating electrons that go here. It also part of the job of the cathode is to actually also neutralize any xenon that comes out. So as it exits here, there's actually some electrons that most of them will make it to these magnetic field lines, but because there's positive charge coming out here, some of them will actually make it over here. and neutralize the xenon.
Well, wouldn't the magnetic field interact with the positively charged particle and accelerate one?
Yes, so actually that's something when you're looking into designing the thruster, because you're looking at, and I'll go back into some more, but you're looking at what's known as the Lamore radius, or basically there's particles are going to circulate at a certain radius when there's a magnetic field. So for electrons, and this is where you design the width of the chamber, they're going to circulate at a very small, as you saw in the video, small length. Xenon atoms, when they're ionized, will technically circulate, but if you look at the if you look at the formula of which the radius that they circulate at, it's a function of the weight of the given ion. So xenon ions are going to be, I think it's 10 to the 14. Yeah, it's much bigger. So they will technically, yes, be affected by the magnetic field, but they will, because the radius in which they'll circulate is much bigger. Yeah. The magnetic field doesn't have enough time to basically significantly affect them in that way.
It's also going to be uniform, so it doesn't matter because it's going to be in all directions.
Yeah, at least that's my understanding of this. Because this would technically cause the xenon to slightly circulate that way, and same with that. But yeah, overall, because of this Lamore radius,
And there's so many of them.
Yeah, that's my understanding at least.
Yeah, and I still don't understand why positively charged xenon will accelerate.
At least the positively charged.
Or after it hits you see the electrons, why is it beneficial for us?
Yeah, actually, and that's a good thing, question. I actually don't have a good answer. I'll have to get back to you on that one. My guess is that because not all of the electrons will necessarily be here, there might be some that come down actually ionizing preemptively, so there's some that accelerate before getting hit by this C. And it's known as a electron cross section, or the probability of an electron hitting. So I think it might be a numbers game where 80% of the time an electron will hit an ion or an inert gas, but then when it gets past there, there's a low enough probability that it won't get hit by it again, that it keeps accelerating out as an ion. That's my guess. I don't have a good answer for that though.
Another book for you to read, though.
Yes, I have. I came away with more questions than answers from this. So, all right. I guess any final ones, or hopefully it made some more sense. But yeah, there's a little bit of a hole. Yeah, awesome. Sweet. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening to my monologue. Bye, Mom. All right, thank you very much again. Congratulations on making it all the way into the monologue from yours truly. I just want to quickly wrap up first off, hopefully the video was informative. Again, sharing as much as I knew about thrusters, Hall effect thrusters off the top of my head. But yeah, there's a couple points that you saw that were kind of unresolved, particularly the one about if the electrons are all circulating at the exit part of the chamber, how's the inert gas accelerating, given that it doesn't hit the electrons until the very end. There's actually a team member named Cohen, shout out to you if you're watching, who came up to me at the very end. I actually had an insight that was probably true, but if there's anybody with more electrical propulsion background, I'd be curious if there's a better answer. Where he was talking about, the magnetic mirror traps aren't perfect traps, so maybe some electrons escape, hit the xenon ion, and then hit the inert gas, and then when the inert gas gets ionized, that will accelerate until another electron hits it, kind of within the thrust chamber. But yeah, I don't have a very good answer for that. About when it gets ionized, when it doesn't, or how much of the electric field it sees. So if somebody wants to dive into the very particulars about that in the comments section, that'd be great. Even you armchair scientists out there, appreciate your perspective. But I'm sure there'll be somebody with a PhD in their name comes and goes, well, you guys were all idiots. This is how it actually works. And we'll go, you're right. Oh, man. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Hopefully this is helpful and informative. Just sharing the last 3-4 years of, banging my head against the wall trying to figure out this stuff. Hopefully this has been helpful. Until later, catch you guys next time.